Hello and welcome to the first of a few videos that will teach you how to master the art of war in Total War 3 Kingdoms. Set during the tumultuous Three Kingdoms era, the various warlords are all forces to be reckoned with, and that's exactly where Dynasty Mode comes in. Bring three warlords of the era together to stand against wave after wave of enemy forces. Creative Assembly and Intel worked together to harness the full potential and power of Intel multi-core i9 processors. Dynasty Mode allows you to increase enemy unit sizes by 600% of what would otherwise be possible, resulting in truly massive engagements with tens of thousands of individual soldiers on screen without affecting performance. And though your three warlords will certainly be outnumbered, let's make sure they aren't outmatched. Let's learn how to conquer Dynasty Mode. Don't underestimate support classes. The first step in Dynasty Mode is to pick your three champions. The warlords of the era are all divided into 5 categories based on their specific sets of skills. Looking at all the options, you'll notice that the stats are often the same or similar across the board, with a bit of variation for warlords that rely on keeping their distance or those that are exceptionally good in melee. But don't forget to consider the skills that each warlord starts with and the upgrades that will be available to them over the course of multiple waves. Sure, the wide area damage or single target damage might sound more enticing from the fire and metal warlords, but don't underestimate the cleansing aura of the warlords in the wood category or the time of need buff that the water category can use to heal allies. 3 extremely powerful melee combatants are worth nothing if they're dead. Do not underestimate the support classes. Apart from their unique active abilities, their passive abilities can be used to keep your own warlords alive in the middle of a wave, slow down enemy units, countercharge enemy cavalry, reduce the rate at which enemy warlords can deliver damage, or even make them easier to kill. Focus on enemy morale. Do not waste time killing those who can be made to flee. To quote a particularly relevant writer, build your opponent a golden bridge to retreat across. Dynasty Mode scores aren't determined by how many units you kill, but by how many you defeat and how quickly you do so. Almost all units that you face on the battlefield will be quicker to break than they would be to kill, and there are a few things you can do to ensure they break quickly. All units start as unbreakable, implying they won't flee the battlefield. The only units that stay that way until death are warlords. The first thing to do is deliver damage. You'll be doing that anyway, sure, but the more damage you deliver across the entire enemy army, the faster your targets will be willing to break. Army losses are a huge drop in morale that result from the entire enemy force suffering damage. Meanwhile, damage sustained is specific to the unit itself. Charging units from the sides and rears will also hurt their morale, with the side and rear counted separately, which means you can charge in from multiple directions to really get some morale damage done. On top of all this, when enemy morale is low, as shown by the flashing icon above their heads, consider using some of your abilities that may cause fear or terror. These 2 attributes are an extra kick of morale damage that can often get the enemy to turn and run. And finally, when multiple units start to rout, as indicated by the white flags over their heads, morale will be further reduced among those still fighting as they watch their friends routing. Keep in mind though that a routing unit might still return to the fight, but a shattered unit is gone for good. Use your charge bonus. There's no point of riding in on horseback if you're not going to charge your enemies. Every warlord has a stat called melee charge bonus, and this acts in a few ways. Not only does this stat increase the hit chance and damage output of a unit, but it does so for a period of time after the charge is complete. Typically, this bonus lasts for about 10 seconds, so you want to make sure you're maximizing your charge bonus by charging into an enemy unit with a double right click, waiting for a few seconds, and then charging into a different nearby enemy with another double right click. Ping pong back and forth and cycle charge different units to spread the damage faster, especially with warlords of the fire category. You'll also note that some warlords have higher charge bonuses than others, and that absolutely makes a difference. Stay on top of them more by giving them more charge orders more often. Finally, make sure you're countercharging enemy warlords and cavalry as well. You don't want to just suffer the damage from their charge bonus without delivering some of your own. Use skill points wisely. Upgrading your warlords with new skills between waves is an important act of balancing the skill points you earn every wave. Sometimes the choice is clear. Your warlords are low on health, and you need to instantly heal them, use a skill point. Don't underestimate the value of that. Remember, a dead warlord is a useless warlord. Apart from that, you might not want to rush all the available skills early on. The early waves are going to be the easiest to defeat, so consider saving the points from your first 2 waves to heal in time for the third one when enemy warlords first appear. Then, save some more points in the subsequent waves and look at the higher cost options unlocked for you. Executioner is excellent for quickly killing a near-dead enemy warlord. Phoenix Rising will more or less entirely revive a warlord who is about to die. Cleansing Aura and Time of Need are great for keeping friends alive. Also, don't underestimate the value of speed. Closing the gap to the enemy faster means finishing a wave faster. Things like Cavalry Master, Wildfire, and Nature's Ally are all great upgrades, and anything that increases attack rate will mean a faster damage output as well. My point being this: save your points early on to get the higher tier skills faster. This will keep the waves relatively easy, allowing you to stand strong against the quickly increasing difficulty over waves. And again, if you always have a point to spare, you can always fully heal your hurt warlords between waves. Splash and AoE damage are keys to success. To add to the previous point, if you're able to in any way, shape, or form, strengthen your trio splash damage, splash attack range, or melee attack rate. Do so early on. These work together to help wipe out enemy units with great ease. Infantry is quick to fall to a few good charges coupled with splash damage, and even cavalry will quickly collapse against a charge from a properly upgraded warlord. Splash and AoE damage aren't all that helpful against enemy warlords early on, but later in the waves when there are several enemy warlords, don't be afraid to bait them into a clump and use all of your AoE abilities and splash damage to hurt them all at once. Remember to target your cone and line attack abilities appropriately as well. These are all able to cut through multiple units if lined up correctly. Know what triggers your skills. Having skills is quite pointless if you're not actually using them. Most of the skills in Dynasty Mode fall under the passive category. That means you don't have to actively click on a button to trigger the skill, but that doesn't mean, however, that you can just sit and watch the action from a safe distance. Make sure you understand how your skills work together, how they synergize, and how you can get the most out of the set of skills you give any one warlord. Some of the easier examples to manage are simple triggers like when engaged in melee. This only activates when the warlord in question is fighting in melee. Now in some cases, the effects of a skill come in phases. In a situation like this, the longer the triggering elements are active, the better the skill gets over time. Other skills will ask you to put yourself in harm's way to reap their benefits. Vengeance, for example, is only active if under fire from range, but it greatly improves melee splash attack range and armor-piercing melee damage. And at other times, the same warlord might have contradictory skills, like our water warlords who can trigger flowing water for a quick getaway, but need to stand still to use quickfire and increase their ranged attack rate. Also, keep an eye out for the area that a skill can work over. Usually the skill will only target oneself, but some of the great support skills are able to target an area or are able to target individuals within an area. Now, if that's the case, there will be a range provided. Make sure that the ones who need the support are within that range, otherwise you're looking at a wasted skill. Make sure also that you're not just giving orders for the sake of giving orders, but are instead trying to make use of the skills you've spent points on. Split your warlords up against regular units. Just because you've brought a band of 3 together doesn't mean they have to stick together. Send your warlords far from one another at the start of every wave. In fact, end the previous wave close to the edge of the battlefield. You want the enemy to spawn as close to your warlords as possible, and you want to pounce on as many of them as quickly as possible. Work separately to reduce enemy numbers across the board. This ensures you're wasting as little time as possible traveling between clumps of enemy units. Spreading the damage like this also means more units are likely to break when the entire enemy suffers from the army losses morale debuff, and working with your warlords separated like this will bring a quicker end to every wave. So remember, split your warlords up against regular units, but work together to kill enemy warlords. As the waves go on, you will find yourself outnumbered not just by enemy units, but also by enemy warlords. These warlords are just as powerful as yours, and you want to eliminate them quickly. The best way to do so is to gang up on them. 3 versus 1, focus on one warlord at a time, and then deal with the units that are swarming you by splitting up. Many enemy warlords will be able to heal themselves using skills similar to those that you can unlock for your own warlords, and enemy warlords will gang up against yours if given the chance. So make sure your own warlords are isolating and ganging up on them first to make sure your damage per second output is high enough to counter any healing, and to make sure you never have an isolated warlord of your own. Remember, the enemy warlords appear every third wave, so at the end of the 2nd, 5th, 8th, so on and so forth, you should try and pull them together. Keep an eye on enemy warlords' health as well. Some will spawn with reduced health during the middle waves. If they spawn close to you, eliminate them first. Otherwise, despite their low health, they'll still be causing you the same amount of damage. Success in Dynasty Mode is a matter of choosing the right combination of warlords, upgrading them with the right skills at the right times, and engaging the enemy on your terms. Explore the many combinations available to see what works best for you and what helps you make a name for yourself. Because that's what being a great general is about.